Welcome to Making Sense of Mental Health. Today we're going to make sense of trauma. I'm going to draw you some stuff. I'm not an artist, but stay with me. I think it'll help. Okay, so lots of times when we think about trauma, people think of it as like this really big, bad, terrible event that's like scarred you for life, right? Well, that's not really it. Trauma is essentially when something we experience in life overwhelms our system's capacity to handle it. Now, let me flesh that out for you a little bit. So let's pretend this is a brain. I can't draw, so just pretend, all right? So this is the side view. This is kind of the neck back here. Up here is what we call the frontal lobe. Now, each part of the brain has lots of different functions. We're not going to get super technical. I think this will make sense. So up here in the frontal lobe, this is where essentially kind of the forehead area, this is where your brain sort of takes all the inputs from all the different parts of the brain, puts it together, and helps you make your best decisions from your values. It's kind of that higher order thinking, okay? Way back here, there's this tiny little part of the brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala really just has one task. Its whole job is to essentially assess for safety, okay? So keep that in mind. I'll show you one more thing. Now, in the brain, there's a gazillion of what we call neuropathways, which are essentially like little tiny pieces of tissue that connect the different parts of the brain, okay? So any two parts of the brain that are activated at the same time wire together with a neural pathway. And we have gajillions of these neural pathways throughout the brain, all right? So you have an experience and let's say, your brain is activating a smell or sight or a sensory input, something like that. Every single part of the brain that's activated then wires together and you have a neural pathway connection, okay? So then what happens is that anytime you have an experience in your life, you come upon something new, your brain sort of takes this experience, it sifts through all the gajillions of neural pathways in your brain and tries to decide, what do we know about this, right? Let's make connections. Is this safe? Do we know something about it? Or is it not safe? We know nothing about this, right? And so if something feels unsafe, if your amygdala perceives it as unsafe, then that amygdala immediately sends a signal, right? And that signal goes down what's called the vagus nerve, which goes down into your heart, into your gut. It's really one of the biggest nerves in the body, and it creates this huge activation. And we all have experienced that, right? So when that happens, when the activation happens, your brain literally partitions off. It sort of like turns off the rest of the brain. We have 0% access to our frontal lobe, and we are only operating from these back survival skills back here, okay? This is where all the survival parts of the brain are. And when that happens, you're really assessing, okay, there are 4 states that my brain can choose from in order to try and keep myself safe, okay? And let's talk about them. So number 1, we've got fight. We all know about that one, right? Fight, we're just gonna react, we're gonna get angry, we're gonna push back in whatever way to just help ourselves feel safe, okay? Number 2 is flight. This is where our brain perceives like there's no winning this, and so I just need to get away, right? I just need to run away in order to get safe in this moment. The third one is freeze. This is where basically our body just shuts down, right? Running isn't gonna work, fighting isn't gonna work. I just need to come to a total place of freeze. It's almost like an animal who's being attacked by, a larger animal, and it just lays very, very still, hoping that the predator will think that it's dead and leave it alone, right? It's the hardest state to come out of because your body everything sort of shuts down. Then the fourth one is called fawn. And we don't talk about this one a lot, but fawning is essentially where you're trying to sort of like negotiate. You're trying to say and do whatever you need to say and do to make it stop, right? You're right. You're so right. I'm totally wrong. I'm an idiot. There's nothing to see here. Like, let's just do what you want, right? Whatever I need to say and do to keep myself safe in that moment, that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So here's the thing about all of this that really sucks is that this is not a voluntary process. We don't get to vote on whether or not our amygdala is going to perceive something as safe or not. It does or it doesn't. That's how it goes. But what really stinks is that ultimately, whenever it perceives that something is unsafe and it takes us to one of these 4 states, we don't have access to our frontal lobe up here. So we're no longer operating from our values. We're no longer operating from wisdom. We are operating from survival and survival only. And this is one of the most ridiculous and awful parts of trying to navigate life in this world and in relationships, right? Because if you have a traumatic incident, Let's say something happens, your brain perceives it as unsafe, you go into one of these four states. There is a literal physiological connection, a piece of tissue that wires that memory to your amygdala, okay? And then anytime something happens out here again that feels, looks, smells, anything a little bit like this incident, then your amygdala is like, we know all about that, and you need to keep yourself safe. And so often we are reacting to the inputs of our lives in irrational and unreasonable ways because our brain perceives them to be unsafe. Let's use like conflict, for instance. If you grew up in a home where, let's say, maybe your parents fought, or when you disagreed with your parents and you tried to like have a conversation and there was no winning, your voice didn't matter, or it became violent or unsafe in any way, then you can be in another relationship that may be entirely safe, where you are completely heard. And yet your nervous system even starts to perceive that there's some conflict coming on, and it's like, whoa, we know all about that, and it is bad. And so we need to shut down. We need to fight. We need to freeze. We need to fawn. Sometimes we'll lie, those kinds of things, because we're just trying to make it stop. This is not a character problem. This is a physiological response in the body that absolutely cannot be controlled. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't be repaired, okay? So, the cool thing about the brain, remember I said that when you have two parts of the brain that activate at the same time, when they fire together, they wire together, right? So let's say back here, this is conflict. Part of what is cool about therapy is that the more we have, let's say we practice how to do conflict in a safe way, and we have this sense of safety every time you do it, because you have a therapist there who's supporting you, you're learning new skills, we're developing tools and resources. So this now requirement out here in the world, when we're being asked to respond to conflict, we have tools, and so our system isn't as overwhelmed, and we can start to use them. We have support, so our system can start to use those skills. And so every time we do that safely, our brain builds a new neural pathway. And the more and the more and the more we do it, then what happens is this neural pathway over here starts to what they call prune. It starts to die off. It goes away. And so now our brain is like, man, we don't have to go that direction. We have this new direction that's safer, healthier. It feels so much better in our bodies, creates such stronger relationships, and we can go that direction. Now it takes time, it takes practice, right? Because we got to get this one to die off by building enough of these new ones. And that's one of the most valuable things in therapy, is that as we're processing those traumatic incidences, as we're developing tools and resources, a new understanding, self-awareness, we're learning to regulate our nervous system and get this vagus nerve to chill out, this amygdala to calm down, then we're able to respond to people from our authentic values up here, right? From wisdom, from who we want to be instead of what our nervous system is forcing us to do. This is one of the biggest battles in relationships and in life. And often people get categorized as just terrible, awful, evil, narcissistic, horrible people because they actually have a nervous system that is a disaster. And you know what? It can be fixed. It's worth the work. And understanding it is the very, very starting place. And so I'm glad you're here today. I hope you'll click that like and subscribe button because there's lots more to come. Thanks so much.